Okay, we're back with part two. My apologies. iPhone storage full. So I unloaded a bunch of stuff so we could keep going here. Where were we? Tax protester Brent Shimko. Yes. So I was in the middle of the story. The Canadian Revenue Agency eventually caught up with me, and there was a back and forth. They ended up getting demanding, like we never saw the inside of a tax court or anything, but it was a back and forth. And they went and they froze bank accounts on me. So that made life difficult. I mean, that was stressful. And I really wanted to have an opportunity just to have my say. And so the fellow that I was dealing with, I mean, they all have fake names. I forget what the guy's name was, but you could tell it was a fake name. Like there's no accountability. I could, to this day, do a records request on this guy, and he doesn't exist. He's a ghost. There's no way you're going to be able to deal with the individual as far as the way that you were treated, and so I wasn't recording any of my calls with him or anything, but there was a back and forth. My favorite tactic with government employees these days, especially when I get them on the phone, is I just start berating them and say, listen, you sound like a nice guy, but you really messed up when you took this job. Why don't you do the world and your family a favor, and you'll have some dignity, and quit this job, stop being a waster of humanity, and start producing something. Like, and just go on and kind of humiliate them. And you could hear them getting uncomfortable on the other end of the line. Like, yes, no, like what are you going to say to that? To that kind of level of humiliation. And so that was actually kind of my earlier attempts at trolling people in a meaningful way. That's because trolling for the sake of trolling is not fun. And I'm a troll. I admit it. But I want to see change as a result of it. It's not just for lulls, But in any case, yeah, they froze bank accounts, and it was getting a little testy there. I had actually just gotten married, and so we had, I forget if we had a joint account at that time, but my wife had accounts open, but it's like they did make life a little miserable. So we came to an agreement. I don't know if the word is ironic, but it was futile. It was the lamest tax protest in history. And I'm not trying to deter anybody from doing a tax protest, but in the end, they owed me more money than I owed them. And so there was this big dust up over pieces of paper being filed with the government, and over these magic Babylonian paper squares, however the fiat currency, it was a joke. So they put me through all that stress and ended up cutting me a check anyway. Whereas I didn't even want that check. I just wanted to be left alone. And I guess, in life there's two kinds of people. There's those people that want to be just left alone, and then there's people that won't leave those people that want to be left alone. And so I fit into the first category. And so that experience was kind of like, these people just don't care. They'll destroy your life if they have to, because they're following their procedures, protocols, and policies, and they have the full resource of the government and the military behind them. Like, if it just staggers the mind. So, I mean, I live up here in the 51st state. We are essentially a fallen state, a failed state, a banana republic. Like, I was really kind of getting blackpilled by this point. Like, what is the point of trying to stand up to this behemoth institution? Little kind of rabbit trail going here. There's kind of a way of thinking, or a formula I've developed years ago. I don't know that I've heard anybody say it specifically in this way, but and I don't think I lifted this from anybody, but in any organization, there's the danger of becoming an institution. And what do I mean by that? Well, when the organization grows to the point where the people are forced to serve the organization versus the organization serving the people, you know you're in an institutional organization. So whether it's a school, a church, your kid's hockey team, there's any number of examples this applies to. And so this is why a lot of grassroots movements have such a hard time staying on track, because they're easy to infiltrate and they do eventually adopt an institutional mentality. And I would love to be able to come up with a way to inoculate individuals and organizations from that. Like it's almost kind of hammered into us that that's the way it has to be. I'm arguing that it doesn't. But in any case, the failed tax protest kind of going on my way. And so now by this time, I've left Winnipeg. We're living out here on the farm. And this name from the past that's been mentioned before, Curtis Stone, well, he likewise left his home in Kelowna, BC, and moved into the interior to an off-grid location in British Columbia, which is in the 51st state as well. And so he started doing live streams. I guess he was still doing that while he was in Kelowna as well, actually. But he started doing live streams, and he was starting to introduce some of his truther ideas. As well, he was interjecting a lot of his background and understanding of the law, because with what he was doing with his urban farming operation in Kelowna, you were brushing up against various regulations, bylaws, etc., even at the provincial level, not just the municipal level, and always the potential that the federal government could get attention of what you're doing and find something to harass you with as well. But anyways, he started sharing his take, and there was actually a lot of value I got out of it, in that getting remedy in the law is really reading and knowing the laws. And one of his premises was, or theories was, that within every law there's built-in remedy. And by remedy I mean like an opportunity to make yourself whole. And I agree to some point. They make these laws written so that your average person is not supposed to understand them. They're not the plainest of language, and if you're not familiar with these documents, it's easy to get not confused, but tripped up. And this is actually something that I think happened with Dean Clifford. And again, this isn't a slight on Dean, but it's our lack of knowledge of the process. Because it's been said, the process is the punishment. And so Dean had lots of courtroom experience, and he had strategies he was employing, and he was getting some successes of defeating charges or what have you. I wasn't that up on the vernacular. I wasn't fluent in what he was doing. I didn't know what an affidavit was. I didn't know how to write motions or do these kinds of things. So it was still sounded like Greek to my ears, even though I've taken some Greek, so I do understand a bit. But that's another story for another time. But Carl Lentz kind of pointed this out is on one of the hearings that Dean was attending, he was all set to go into court and argue about either a local rule or procedure or even something in the law, and without his knowledge, they changed that rule, so that when he stood before the judge and argued, uh, he was arguing a nullity essentially, in that he had no position, like he had no no not quite no standing, but the court wasn't going to hear his argument because the rule he was arguing on didn't exist anymore. And so that was a procedural kangaroo move that they pulled on him, and there was no way he was going to be able to guard against that. They essentially set him up. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, these people know their system backwards and forwards. Like, we got to come up with a better way. And so Curtis was one who finally says, like, you just got to read these laws. You got to know them. You got to know how they apply to you. You got to understand the language. And some things you got right, some things you got wrong. This video, I don't want to criticize what everybody did right or wrong. We can talk about that as it comes up at other times. But for now, like, Curtis Stone was talking about this stuff on YouTube. Like, he wasn't getting censored. None of these guys were getting censored. And I thought that's pretty amazing. So if the system was afraid of this message, it wasn't trying to stamp it down. Like, there was a lot of infiltrators in a lot of these movements. But kind of long about this time, Dean Clifford had got out of prison. He was doing something else on Telegram now. And I was kind of committed to, I'm just going to adopt the normie life. But I still had this basic bent towards anarchism or voluntarism. People like James Corbett from the Corbett Report in the previous episode has lots of information on this. Larkin Rose kind of falls within that category most certainly. Dean Clifford and others. I think Curtis Stone would agree to some extent. And so I was just kind of determined, I'm just going to live clean, fly right. I forget how that expression goes, but I was just going to stay in my lane and just try to live on my own terms without drawing too much attention to myself. And, by this time, Justin Trudeau had been voted in, and Dean Clifford had actually brought up a point, is like, now that Canada has legalized cannabis, all these freedom fighters and legal scholars and warriors, they all kind of went away, because really their only motivation was to have their weed, to be able to smoke. So all these people just went off and blazed their legal cannabis from the dispensary, and you never heard another peep. Now that they've got their legalized government dope, there was no enduring substance to their activism. So a lot of people just kind of fell by the wayside. Well, maybe they're still around, but it was sort of, I had noticed that trend too, that a lot of people in this realm, this context of, lawfare, for lack of a better word, they just kind of seem to have the motivation is, I just want to be able to have my marijuana. That was it. That was where it began and ended with them. They weren't trying to bring about social change or changing the system or what have you. Whereas I was like, fundamentally, there's a true injustice system at work here, and it didn't sit well with me. So then along comes a fella on YouTube back during lockdown, and his name is Alphonse Fajolo. And I was watching him for a while. It was very intriguing in that he was introducing a little more of the process to me. How to write affidavits, how to write motions, how to interact with legal notice, how to give legal notice, and all these different things. His slant, if you will, or angle was contract law, and everything is contract. And so your affidavits reflect that. You kind of correct your status. You make declarations about what you are and are not contracting with the government on any particular matter. And so it was really interesting in that intuitively there's something there. There's something correct. And as well, he was talking about bar grievances and judicial review, where you're triggering a response from the indemnity or insurance holders that most, I don't want to say most or all, but the public employees have an indemnity, somewhat of a blanket indemnity, that in the course of their duties, they're not held liable personally if they're operating in good faith. So Alphonse's tactic was, if somebody involved in any kind of government action towards you and they are a bar member, you automatically just submit the bar grievance. And it's not that the bar association local to your area is going to do anything about it, but the insurance company will pick up on that. And when they see so many bar grievances, it's supposed to cause a reaction from them to see the member that you're have the grievance against to be a high risk, high risk of litigation or a payout, and so that would make the lawyer or attorney's marketability and employability more difficult. So I don't know how I feel about that. I don't even know if this is true necessarily. And what I've done with all these people really is watch them. I want to see results, and so credit to everybody I've mentioned so far. There's a lot of this area is trial and error. You got to go before the judge and try this strategy, see if it works. You may or may not go home free to your family after an appearance. But the people that have taken the risks, like, mad respect to all of you. But as well, there's the mentality that, and this came from Dean Clifford as well. You wage your battle on paper, not in the courtroom. You should be winning your case without ever having to step foot in the courtroom. But if you do have to step foot in the courtroom, you know how to handle yourself as a pro se litigant. And so yeah, Alphonse had a real head of steam going. I don't know if he got tossed from YouTube, but he ended up resurfacing on Telegram, and as well as Dean Clifford and others. And I found the Telegram app just wasn't working for, I wasn't able to connect with people in the way that I wanted to. I see some of these people have, boatloads of followers on Telegram, but I just don't engage with that app. Like, it's not satisfying to me. So Alphonse does appear as a guest on various podcasts and whatnot. People have interviewed him. So I do kind of check in from time to time, see what he's doing, but I don't know that the results are there yet. So it's sort of a work in progress. I really would like to see how some of his personal cases or lawsuits turn out, but I think we're still waiting on that. So we'll leave that there. Through Alphonse, he linked to the second hometown boy that I want to give a shout out to. He's passed away, but his name is Robert Fox. He's originally from Winnipeg. He ended up fleeing to the States. There was a warrant out for his arrest for, I believe it was either like homicide or manslaughter. Like, I don't know all the details, but he ended up relocating to Texas and really carrying a torch for a lot of this pioneering ideas of how to navigate the legal system without having a law license or without having had gone to law school. And so, great admiration for these guys. And this is kind of the key, is you got to put in the time. The law is complicated, maybe by design, but in order to get out what you want from it, like it takes either a law degree or you got to put in the time. Like, it's not just see a seminar, download some forms online, send them to the government, and you're good to go. It's like there's a philosophy of law. There's an application of law. Like, there's the law enforcement side, the guy on the street who's putting you in the handcuffs. You don't necessarily win when you try to hold court on the side of the road. You have your day in court. But yeah, with Alphonse, it was about contract law and filings. And so it was really neat in kind of learning more of the process. Now, take us forward a few years, because again, that was during COVID, and he kind of brings us to about this time last year, where I hadn't really thought about law for a good couple of years. It seems like this comes in waves. I'm kind of interested in the area, and then I get distracted with other stuff, and then I come back to it. And so, for whatever reason, in early 2024, the YouTube algorithm started feeding me a bunch of First Amendment auditor stuff and more cop watching videos. And really, one of the first that I came across was called We the People University. And the gentleman's name is Abaya Israel, I believe. But if you want to search We the People University, Abaya was a sheriff's deputy. I believe he's in Georgia. I could be wrong. And so he goes and does a lot of reaction videos to either body cam footage or dash cam footage or cell phone, citizen journalist kind of footage. And he breaks down from his perspective and understanding the law, as well as giving the law in whatever jurisdiction. If there's something going on in Ohio, he'll state the local law that the party was alleged to have broken, and kind of boil it down from a former law enforcement's perspective of what was going on at the time of the arrest, or the time of the incident, or the time of the call, and how he feels about it. Now, he's entirely on our side as far as seeing that the system is corrupt, it is broken. Well, it's not broken. It works exactly the way it was designed. It appears broken to us because we're going in with the premise that it's based on justice, and it's not when you really look at it. And so I got a lot of value from We the People University, and so I kind of was binge watching that stuff. And some of these guys I had binge watched in the past. There's a ton of stuff from Carl Lentz. There's all kinds of stuff from Dean Clifford, Curtis Stone, Alphonse. So you could spend hours and hours and hours educating yourself, but handle with care. Like I say, use at your own risk. Results may vary. But from Abaya, I think it was there that I came across the likes of James Freeman and James Madison audits. And again, James Madison, he's former state trooper, I believe. he might have been California Highway Patrol. Reformed his self up when he realized that the system he was serving was not what he wanted to be a part of, and became an auditor. And he was focused on, the cop watching specifically, as a citizen journalist, challenging the cops of what he was doing, and really towing the line as far as never even coming close to breaking the law where they could put hands on him and do what he needed to do. A very, very calm approach, very tactful, very shrewd, very educated, very knowledgeable. Really, that appealed to my personality, because there's a ton of this First Amendment stuff out there that actually kind of turns you off. Just the demeanor, the personalities. It's like some people, just because you have a camera doesn't make you a journalist. So we'll leave it at that. But James Freeman was one, and there was this viral video he did years and years ago of the cop coming out of the precinct to see what he was doing, and he completely flipped the script on the cop. Sorry, I didn't mean to spit on you there. Flipped the script and asked the cop, like, what are you doing? Have you been drinking today? And it's on his homepage on James Freeman, and it's delightful. Like, it's got millions of views, and I started consuming James's material, and he's, I guess, kind of one of the OGs in this area. He's been through so many scenarios. He's done the public accountability as far as holding local councils, municipals, county administrators. He's taken the fight to the people that need the transparency shone on them, not just the cops. And he's done enough cop watching. And as of late, he's kind of gone back to this flipping the script material, where he does this kind of method actor, improvisational, humorous style, demanding that government officials can answer his questions in a cooperative manner without resistance. Because if he encounters resistance, well, they get written up and they have to face the consequences. So it's delightful stuff. I encourage you to go check out some of his videos as of late. But I was watching James Freeman, and he was going after all kinds of people. He has years and years of content to explore. And so I learned some stuff from James Freeman. More of the process, more of what's going on in council meetings, school board meetings, etc. Another quick mention, I guess, James Hendry. In my opinion, he's being held as a political prisoner at this point in Indiana. He's in jail awaiting appeal. But again, taking it to the people, but in a manner, we got to be able to criticize ourselves, or at least stand back and look at whether our approach is working. But he ended up getting charged with something other people were doing. The details of the case are out there on the internet and in YouTube. But basically, people were phoning some office in a certain county in Indiana, and somehow a jury was able to find that he was guilty for the actions of what other people were doing. And calling it harassment, it's really weak. These people are very weak. Just as a reminder too, and this is something Lionel from Lionel Nation, you've met him in an earlier video. What these people need to remember is there's more of us than there are of you, and we can drown you in our piss if we wanted to. don't mistake our inactivity or our cooperation with agreement. And so, in any case, just wanted to give that shout out to Henry. His family could use support. So, if there's anything you could do, look into his situation and contribute as you feel moved. But while watching the James Freeman stuff and James Hendry at the time, a court case came up, and it was the state of Nevada versus Jose Chile de Castro. And his YouTube handle was and is Delete Laws. But this was kind of something we don't have in Canada, this televised courtroom proceedings. But I ended up watching his original hearing where he was the defendant in this case of interference on a traffic stop. I really forget the original charges, but he ended up going to jail for 6 months. He was sentenced to 9 months. He got out in 6, if I remember correct. And I wasn't too familiar with Chile prior to this. I recognized his face on the Nevada court's thumbnail and didn't realize he was charged. And I hadn't watched a lot of Delete Laws, if any. He actually came across as a little too crass and I don't want to say vulgar, but it's like it just wasn't suiting my taste. Like it was very aggressive, and that's not a bad thing. But it just wasn't something I was going to emulate, or it wasn't something I was going to learn from. But in any case, he ended up charged and imprisoned, and this fascinated me because I saw what he did, and it was not against the law. The case got overturned, and he got released, and it did take its toll on him. Like I look at him as a brother now. Like I've watched his content upon his release, but there were others at the time that kind of really picked up his mantle. One of them was Michael Eline. Another one was Brian from Here's the Deal, High Impact Flicks, and he's got another channel now called The Disturbing Illusion. And I came across Brian from Here's the Deal kind of in an unexpected way. You remember Big Bear, Owen Benjamin from a few videos back? Also known as Doo-Doo Finger Bear. Any references to Owen Benjamin from here on in, I'm going to be referring to him as Doo-Doo Finger Bear. If you want to find out why he's earned that moniker, you're going to have to go to his channel, find him on the internet, and ask him why people call him Doo-Doo Finger Bear. But in any case, I saw this debate come up in my recommendations on YouTube, and it was Doo-Doo Finger Bear against Brian. And I didn't know much about Brian. I virtually knew nothing about Brian, other than that he was a YouTuber. And so kind of the premise of the debate, which wasn't a debate, but Doo-Doo Finger Bear got together with Brian, because Brian is more my ideology of anarchy or voluntarism, whereas Doo-Doo Finger Bear is a bit of a bootlicker statist that believes that local government is there to serve you, and it's in your best interest to utilize the state to get other people to come do violent things to your neighbors when they do something you don't like. So in any case, there was this debate, and it was a train wreck. I almost expected it. I don't think Brian saw what was coming, but I kind of knew how it was going to go. And it just turned into ad hominem attacks, one after another. Brian couldn't get a word in edgewise. He was just being called names, vulgar names. Like, it was just awful. And it really made me sad. It was sort of Doo-Doo Finger's last chance to redeem himself. And I just saw, like, this guy hasn't changed a bit since I last watched him. And it had been a couple of years since I had anything to do with what was going on in Bertaria. But as a result, I started watching Brian after this debate. And Brian is a super smart guy as far as analysis of what's going on. He knows his constitution. He's got a good sense of justice and morality. He grew up in the church. Like, he's kind of got the opposite background to me. He grew up in the church and kind of left the church. I didn't grow up in the church and found, a faith in God and Christ, and so it may be, a discussion for another day of where he exactly stands in there, but I recognize a lot of the Christian morals and positions that he's coming from. And so Brian, along with Michael Eline, they were helping Chili throughout his jail ordeal by keeping his channel afloat so that when he got out, he would still have this revenue stream. And from what I've learned about Chili, like, he's built his brand, if you will, as an entrepreneur and used YouTube as a way to market what he's doing. Like, it's a business, and he's unapologetic about that. And I think that's great. Like, I've said this in one of these videos, like, I don't have anything to market. All I have is, or all I'm offering you at this point is what's going on between my ears. And if that's something that people want to consume, I think it says more about you than it does about me. But in any case, Chili got out of jail, and credit to Michael Eline and others and Brian. When Chili was able to return, he kind of still had a business to return to. Now, the reach and the viewership has decreased. I don't know how much of that is YouTube algorithm. Like, Chili is holding himself out as one who's built businesses using social networks and social media. I don't have that background. I don't have that knowledge. So I'm kind of relying on his expertise, that he understands the algorithm better than most, because he's been in the game long enough to understand how things work. So whether there's shadow banning going on or censorship or reduced reach, I don't know. What I do know is that a lot of these channels, they really rose up during the Black Lives Matter movement in like 2018, 2019, 2020, where there was a defund the police component to the narrative. There was lots of social unrest around elections and whatnot. So I think this kind of material, people wanted to consume it back then, whereas now a lot of it is actually just traumatic. Like, I watch some of Chili's stuff. I do tune in regularly, and I do participate in the chats, but it's some really traumatic stuff. Like, I don't know how much I can actually watch of the reaction videos. It's not so much the cop watching, but a lot of this body-worn camera stuff, which we still don't have that in Canada to the extent that you do in the States. And even the idea of holding a cell phone up to record public officials or a cop, that has been a change that's a direct result of the citizen journalists and people holding up their cell phones. 6, 7, 8 years ago, there were still lots of videos online of cops seeing your dash cam, or your cell phone is recording on a traffic stop, and they cover the camera, or they smash your camera, or they they turn off your phone. Like that has been settled at the Supreme Court level, at least in the States. In Canada, somewhat as well. We do have the right to record police. But say courtroom recordings, it's nowhere near what you guys are able to do in the States. And so you're ahead of other places because of the activism. Like that has been a very positive change. I commend you on that. But now with all this body worn video and freedom of information requests, it's some real grisly stuff. I mean, back in the day, this was basically snuff videos, and so I can only tolerate so much. Like it's really bad, folks. Like I'm not going to go into the details, but yeah, we need some serious reform through law enforcement. We're not going to go into solutions in this video. I'm already way off track, but are you guys doing okay? I'm enjoying this. Let's take a sip of coffee. I'm even gonna have a biscuit. As Andy Edwards says, here in Canada we call them cookies. They're not biscuits, they're cookies. So yeah, delete laws and the idea of using YouTube as marketing, I think that's great. He has products, merch, to buy. He's done a lot of stuff in the area of constitutional scholarship. You've heard of the trifold, quite possibly, but there's a lot of people in the First Amendment community that hate him. I don't get the hate. Just some inside baseball on you too, for you folks too. Like the internet is possibly the most powerful tool we have for intercommunication and interaction that's ever been known to humankind. And so early on, without anybody even saying a peep, the advertisers and marketers moved in and turned it into a forum to sell you more stuff. Like everything about the internet and all these tech giants, it's about selling you stuff. It's all about money. It's imagine if we used the internet for like we were told what it was used for back in the late 90s when nobody had heard of the information superhighway. And what is the internet exactly? Oh, it's going to transform how we communicate and interact for the rest of our... Yeah, but it's also going to give all these corporations direct access into your lives so that they can take more of your money. Like that's the whole model of Google and YouTube and all of it. Like it's all about marketing. So when people get mad at Chili for marketing, I'm sort of like, this whole thing is about marketing. And except this channel, I have nothing to sell you. Leave some money in my tip jar. I don't have a tip jar. Send me some cookies to my post office box. Something, Sandpoint, Idaho. All right, get serious here. So Chili, I love Chili. Go check out Chili. He's doing great things. He's done great things in this area. And then there's other names I just kind of want to mention briefly and not talk too much about. But people like the civil rights lawyer. His name John Bryan. He gives his take, from a bar lawyer perspective, as well as a very patriotic perspective. Great educational value there. Up in Canada, we have a fellow named Runkle in the Bailey, Ian Runkle. And so his YouTube handle is a bit of a play on words of I think it was some British show called the Brum Pole in the Bailey, if I remember. Steve Leto in Michigan. He goes over interesting cases. If you spend any time in this kind of genre on YouTube, names like John Phelix, people call him the OG. I like his stuff. He's got great humor, a great demeanor, a great approach, very calm, very, very thoughtful. The Armed Fisherman in Second Amendment protections. Awesome stuff there. But pretty much exactly a year ago, I don't even know if it's today or this week, but I came across a fellow, and we're going to do a whole feature on him and his pal in Tucson, who's also a pro se idiot. But I came across this deposition between Lane Myers and a New Mexico state trooper in my feed. And so I watched it all the way through, and my jaw just dropped. Because it was a pro se idiot, self-proclaimed, or maybe it was pro se defendant. I forget the title of it. I actually have that video on my Twitter. And so I do have a Twitter account. I'm just reposting stuff mostly. I'm not engaging in Twitter a whole lot. But if people kind of find me here and want to see some of the stuff, like there's people that are canceled on YouTube, like Mark Peralvis, Canada Polly, Polly St. George, Amazing Polly. I link and repost their stuff so that you could find it easily. If you're following me, you could follow them. They got amazing stuff. Go check it out. But I don't do a lot on Twitter at this point. And we'll do a video on why I'm on YouTube instead of some of these other platforms. But anyways, Lane Myers, he tore the state trooper apart. And I was so in awe. Like it was a bloodbath. And so it's a fairly lengthy video, but I encourage you to go check it out. And so I found another video of his where he deposed another person in this ongoing case that's going on in New Mexico, and he's from Arizona, near Tucson, and he was vacationing in New Mexico in 2023. The case has dragged on for a couple of years, and there's now a hearing date set for March. But just fascinating stuff. And Lane started posting videos around this time last year, giving updates on what's going on his cases. And then through the course of last summer, he started racking up all these other cases. Like it just seemed like this guy was attracting trouble wherever he went. But he knew the law inside and out. His wife was a federal court judge or assistant, depending on how you want to look at it. And he was just wreaking havoc in the court system in Tucson and Pima County and through Lane Myers, Reluctant Prophet began teaming up, as well as others in his area. And Reluctant Prophet, he's nearby. He lives a little ways out from Tucson, but he's kind of got his own legal issues going between himself and a land development construction company. And so there was like this coming together, and these people were helping each other. And so there's, you know, if you follow the story, you know the name Mr. Gold, Tucson Police Suck, and Tucson Toe Tag, and Anna Banana Republic, and a few others. They're all kind of in that Tucson area. And then James Freeman he's back in Arizona now. Like he's been all over the country, but he's back in Arizona, so he was kind of pitching in a hand, and so like there's this amazing support system that they've created, and Lane's real tactic has been to use YouTube to go public with everything that's public about his case. Like there's no privacy. Like he's putting everything he's doing out there, and so rather than go into great detail now, we'll talk about Lane and Reluctant Prophet at length in another video. But this to me was like the key, in that he was unlocking the process. He was showing in detail how to do motions, how to engage with the other side as far as communication, and how to engage with the court, how to engage with the law enforcement, how to do these things, what to expect in the process. And in less than a month, he actually dropped this phrase that's going to, I think, come to mean more going forward. But it's this idea of the doctrine of the lesser magistrate. And there's actually a website. It's not a YouTube site, but a website out there called The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate. And I had never heard anybody use that phrase before, Lane. So I want to hear what he has to say going forward. In the meantime, go check out The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate, study up on it yourself, and then we'll have a discussion about that another time. But I just want to point that out, that I was aware of the concept, but I didn't know anybody else was. so I thought that was really cool. There's some real synchronicities going on with Lane and others here, and we'll unpackage that as we go along. But then most recently, I guess and we'll kind of close off on this, is there's an auditor down in Fort Worth. Her name is Carolina Fort Worth, is her YouTube, and she's been stirring the pot in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But this summer, she was involved in a case, and she was charged with interference, resisting arrest, failure to, like, just a bunch of bogus bullshit charges, like just steaming pile of crap charges. And like that, it went viral because it was really an excessive force case where she could have lost her life. She's, I believe, in her 60s, and she got face planted by this cop, this punk, Kruger. I don't know if he's a Brady List member at this point yet, but he is no longer, I believe he was with the Tarrant County Police Department. People can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's no longer an officer with them. But she just got totally railroaded in court. She got found guilty of her charges, and it entirely appears that, yeah, the process is going to be the punishment. She spent a few days in jail. She got probation. She got the ride. Let's put it that way. She got the full ride, and now she's out and still stirring up stuff. But as a result, people are starting to come forward and say, hey, and this is where I'm at. I love what's happening, but it's almost like there needs to be a coach saying, okay, all right, team, it's halftime. Let's go to the locker room and let's regroup. Because doing more of the same thing of what we're doing in this police accountability, government accountability, public official, public servant, public employee accountability, we've only got so far. And the system is always trying to adapt to get one step ahead of us. And so doing more of the same, it's not only not going to get us where we need to go, it's going to get people hurt and lives disrupted. People thrown in jail that didn't otherwise have to be in jail. So it's almost like as if we could press pause. It's like, put your cameras down, put your cell phones down. And I'm not an expert in this area, Like I don't want to come across as an authority. I'm an observer. I'm kind of an outsider. I'm not going to be doing audits. I'm not going to be doing cop watching. For one, I live an hour away from where the action is. I'm not going to spend my days driving to and from, where all the hot spots are. I got other stuff to do. I'm a YouTuber after all. But I think there's something we can learn from Lane, and then there's people that are speaking up saying, Caroline, you need to slow down or reassess or understand like what is really happening here. And so Buddy Bao, another auditor slash anarchist, YouTuber, I've got great respect for him. Like he's done the stuff. He's faced down the beast, and he's coming almost from a fatherly advice role now, where he's gone on panels and said like, "Hey, for real, girl, like, where does it end? Like, how much are you willing to lose?" And it's like James Freeman is sort of tracking on that same path. It's like something James said a while ago is like, I'm not so much trying to elicit change. I'm going to butcher his quote, but it's more like I'm documenting the downfall of society. And that's like the ultimate black pill thing to say. But I feel that. It can be frustrating, when all your efforts don't seem to be making a difference. But in any case, like, there's people like James and John Felix and others and Bao that can kind of be a voice and give direction to the movement or facilitate the ability to come together and join forces. The way I see they're doing in Tucson and doing a kick-ass job. Lane Myers is 16-0 as far as getting charges dismissed. 16-0. Those are the kind of results I'm looking for. Those are the results I've been looking for. I don't know anybody with a 16-0 record getting criminal charges. Whether, like, go check out his stuff, folks. You'll be amazed. The caveat there is he's got 1,000 or more hours of content on YouTube, and you virtually have to look at all of it to understand what's going on. And this is where I see people coming in kind of offering Lane or Reluctant Prophet solutions without having the background of what's going on. And I've been watching pretty close to all of it, and I got a good grasp of what is taking place there. Some of the details, I don't need to know, but I get the gist of the strategy and how they're coming together. So it's like we need to do more of that and use these platforms to get the remedy we need to access. It may be only a matter of time before they shut us all down, but that's okay. There'll still be an element of people that understand the importance of civil disobedience, that will rise up, that will come back, that won't stop fighting. Chile, his slogan is, "We don't stop." We never stop. And it's that do or die mentality that you just got to get it done, whatever it takes. And so that's about it. I just want to say, like, there's a million different gurus out there. I would say tread cautiously in this space here. I'm not going to ban anybody, but if you come talking about trust law and private members associations and UCC code and contract law and a bunch of weird stuff that doesn't have to do with knowing the rules of civil procedure, how to handle yourself in court, knowing the laws, being able to read the law. If you're going into all this kind of patriot mythology, as Alphonse Fajolio calls it, I'm going to ignore it. You know, you can say it, but I'm not going to give a lot of wild, unproven theories any traction here. And it's nothing against you. You may have something valuable to say, but I don't want the common law stuff and right to travel and birth certificate trusts and all caps. I've been down that road. I've seen it, and there's the results just aren't there. You got to bring your receipts. You got to show your work. And what I found is in the past, a lot of these people, they have good theories, they're convincing, but can't show the receipts, can't show the results. And we're all work in progress. We're all learning. We can learn from each other. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm not saying any of those methods are wrong. I'm just saying I'm not going to entertain them because I need to see the proof. The proof is in the pudding, is in the eating. So there we go. I fought the law. Don't know who's won yet, but the battle is underway. And like going forward, James Freeman has kind of talked about the thing. It's like understanding the philosophy of law. Why does it exist? How does law operate? And I think a lot of people, they want to cling to the letter of the law. So it's like there's the theory of law. And that's you know, the ink on paper kind of understanding of what does the law say, but then there's also the law in practice and application. And that's where we get screwed because we don't know what's going on in a courtroom. We don't know how to talk in a courtroom. We don't know how to get what we want in a courtroom or on a filing. And it doesn't matter what the law says. They're going to get you on the process. So it's like we need to learn to practice law. Do the ID10T, pro se idiot method. Learn as much as you can. There may be some that need to actually go to law school and get a degree. In hindsight, that may have been a wise path for me to go down. But there's just something I don't trust inherently about that system, that formal institutionalized legal system. So there's ways about it. Michael Eline talks about how he got a law degree without, or how he became a lawyer without a law degree. Go check out his ebook. Again, you're gonna have to look up all these people yourself, because I don't know what you're interested in, but these are the people that have all influenced me. I've heard what they have to say. I've seen what they're doing. I've seen what they've done. And from here, it's helping to find what I want to do. So to the Andy Edwards folks, if you're still with me, take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. If you're here for the first time, welcome. This is going to be a wild ride. Or maybe not. Maybe maybe it's going to be as boring as can be. But whatever. We're going to talk about this stuff. We're going to explore. I'm going to do a little profile about the Tucson area Pro Se Idiot Club. And that's going to essentially close out this playlist. There's going to be a little bit of supplemental information that I'm going to tack in here, but we're going to essentially close off this first series, you know, how I came to be a YouTube creator. And we'll move on from here. There's a bunch of shorts that I'm publishing from time to time. I do that just to kind of send out a bit of sonar to throw ideas out there and see what comes back. There's some real interesting comments I've been getting. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who comments on any of my videos or shorts. I'm just learning how to do YouTube, so I don't have a lot of expectation, but a lot of gratitude for those that kind of blew up my views in the last 3 or 4 days with the music and the Andy Edwards material. Go back and check out that stuff. It's neat. I like to think I'm a neat guy. And if you like neat guys too, subscribe, like the video, share the video. I have no idea how to do any of that. Clip the video, leave a good comment, leave a mean comment. Doesn't matter. It's all going to be good. What else did I want to say? Nothing. Bye.